right, here we go. Someone in my Discord server just sent me this video. Why do Sonic game opinions always change? Make sure to subscribe to my channel. This is by Matt Has No Cuts. I think that's how you say his name. If you guys want to send me videos to react to, get in the Discord server. The link is in the description. Let's get into it.
If you've been in the Sonic community for any amount of time, you've probably realized that this franchise is quite controversial. There have been plenty of mediocre or bad Sonic releases over the years that have left the franchise and its community in shambles every time. In fact, there's entire eras of this franchise that have been filled with mediocre games.
Bro, why you put Sonic Unleashed there, bro? Who let bro sneak in Sonic Unleashed?
We all know this. Sonic has his reputation for a reason. But the strange part about all of this is that sometimes the popular opinion on a Sonic game tends to shift every once in a while. Sometimes a widely accepted game is now considered bad.
I like that he put Sonic Colors right here, and I think I know what he's about to say. This is the one game in the franchise that essentially saved the Sonic franchise, and now people, if you go on Twitter especially, people don't like the game anymore. It's you would think this game was mid or trash.
Bad, and sometimes a bad game is considered good. This has been going on within the Sonic community for a long while now, but the question has always been asked, why does this happen? And why do Sonic fans always change their mind?
I think I know why this happens, and I almost would like to make a video myself. I thought about making a video like this, but I guess it already exists, but I think I know why, but we'll get into it as it goes on.
Some people like to chalk it up to teenagers being nostalgia biased for some bad games they played when they were young and dumb. But honestly, I find that way of thinking to be flawed because that implies that someone's opinion on a video game can be wrong, which defeats the entire purpose of what an opinion is supposed to be.
Nah, some opinions can be wrong, though.
So, why does this happen? Well, I think I've become very educated on this subject through my extensive research on the topic, also known as being a Sonic fan for several years. So here's my take on it.
The horrors! It's hard being a Sonic fan.
It's not something so simple that can be explained in like one sentence. There is a bit more nuance here. So there might be multiple conclusions I make in this video, but to make it simple, I have narrowed it down to 3 big reasons why this happened.
There's 3.
Age, recency bias, and ambition.
Recency bias is definitely huge. I think wait, hold on.
This happens. Age, recency bias, and ambition.
Okay, recency bias is definitely something that, you know, when you think of why a Sonic game may not be good, like if you think of Sonic Colors in particular, a game that basically saved the franchise, because the remaster report wasn't good, maybe that's why people might think it's bad.
Let's start with age.
Age.
Just like every other media, video games change in quality as time moves on. That's because naturally games get innovated on and improved over time, so an older game from 10 years ago could easily be outdated in some of its features.
Don't you dare put Sonic Adventure there!
And in some rare cases, maybe some games can get better with age. In Sonic's case, unfortunately, some of his games don't age too well.
Yeah.
You can already tell where I'm going with this. The most well-known example of a Sonic game's reception changing is the Sonic Adventure games. That is solely because of age. Now, hold on. Before you blow fuse, I love the Sonic Adventure games, and they're honestly some of my favorite Sonic games ever made. Both adventure games are in my top 5 3D Sonic games, so I certainly am far from hating it. Trust me, I am not a hater of this.
Peak 1 and Peak 2. The best Sonic game ever, and the best Sonic game ever B, basically.
Duology. However, I can admit that these games haven't aged well and that there's a bit of a learning curve for new players. That's okay to admit. This also applies to
I would say that this game aged like butter. If you think about Sonic Adventure, this game definitely aged poorly in maybe like the cutscene department, but the controls for Sonic in 1998 or wherever, 1998, 1999, control better than some of the new games today. Like, Sonic Adventure controls better than the Boost games. It controls better than Generations. It's butter. It's butter smooth.
Pretty much every other game from that era. Super Mario 64
Super Mario 64, the movement in this game, like, that's a game that aged poorly. Although I still like playing it. Sonic Adventure, you could say some aspects aged poorly, but when you think of the Sonic gameplay, it's smooth butter. Smooth like butter. The camera's a little wonky, but for the most part, smooth like butter. You watch me speedrun the game, it's crazy.
Is one of the best video games ever made, in my opinion. Definitely a top 5 for me. But honestly, you know, this game aged like milk.
It did.
Keep it
No, it did. He's right.
You know, on the subject, even Sonic Adventure has aged better than this game.
He's
stopped me from loving it to death. So it's completely natural that these Sonic Adventure games would have less players enjoying it over time. Maybe it shouldn't have been bashed as hard because, listen, I'm not going to call the critics stupid. But I am going to call this stupid because...
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, that's based off of the Sonic Adventure DX port, I guess. You know, that was the worst port. But 48, though? Like, what?
Because this makes no sense.
It doesn't.
But I get it. You know, I get it. Every game from this era in gaming goes through this in one way or another, and it's just the sad fact of reality. I still see Nintendo fans call Super Mario 64 mid every day because of how it's aged. Even though, let's be fair and honest here, guys, it is better than Odyssey and Galaxy.
Whoa!
It's just facts. Like,
Yo, what? Nah, you can't say that it's better than Odyssey and Galaxy. Yo, come on.
Of course, nobody would understand that because they're not educated.
Although, I would say they're not objectively better, but I do find myself playing Super Mario 64 more. Like, I have so many playthroughs of that game. That's my first ever Mario game, by the way. But I feel like that's a crazy take right there.
Then based.
Like, I get it. I guess I get it.
I understand what makes these games good because I am the game, bro.
What?
Now, with that said, there is a lot more to say about age, which leads me into my next subject.
Recency bias. All right, this is going to be interesting.
To pretty much any form of media, there's something that can happen to art called recency bias. It is the concept that after some kind of art is released, it is either praised or hated, not because of its actual quality, but rather because of the landscape and time that it was released in. Sonic suffers from recency bias on a few occasions, a popular example being the one and only Sonic Unleashed, which is personally my favorite Sonic game.
That everyone started to love.
Sonic Unleashed is probably the biggest reason why this video even exists, because no other game in this franchise has had a bigger redemption than this game. This game went from hated by everyone to being widely considered as one of the best Sonic games of all time.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you pull out the Metacritic scores, I don't know if he talks about it also, but this game went from a 60 on Metacritic and over the years went up to an 8.5. I mean, I understand why this game got a 60. I don't like the Werehog, but I gotta say, Unleashed is definitely one of my favorite Sonic games just based off of the heart and soul and charm that this game has. Like, I don't love the Werehog. You know, I think it's bad, but not bad, but not good. And I see what he means though. Sonic Unleashed is the #1 like beneficiary of Sonic games, kind of as the years go on. Like, people completely flip-flopped on this game.
All time. But how did that even happen? Well, it's because of recency bias. Sonic Unleashed was released 2 years after Sonic 06, which was a catastrophic event for Sonic that has done irreversible damage to the franchise. On top of the game being very experimental with gameplay features such as the Werehog. Both of those reasons are why Sonic Unleashed was known as one of the worst Sonic games of all time, for the next decade at least. The sad part was that the game wasn't even that bad. It was not glitchy or buggy or unpolished. In fact, it was pretty well polished, especially in the cutscenes. And even the gameplay for both styles, being the Werehog and the boosting stages, were very well made. The biggest issue I'd say that is fair to critique is that the pacing is pretty bad. The Werehog itself isn't terrible, but when you place this slow kind of gameplay next to the very fast boosting stages, the game can and will feel disjointed.
Yeah, well, not only that, it's just like when I'm playing a Sonic game, I'm trying to go fast. I'm trying to, you know, like, this is the complete opposite. And I get, you know, there's been different gameplay styles, but this one is just too radically different than like the boosting stages. It's just like, I don't want to slog through a 15-minute level. I want to beat the level in 4 or 5 minutes my first time, and then progressively get better as it goes on, and stay true to that formula.
Especially since the Werehog stages are much longer than the daytime stages, like on average 6 times the length.
Yeah,
personally, I don't see an issue with it because I do like the Werehog, and I don't mind the longer levels. But, you know, I get it. Like, not everyone wants to play a Sonic game to play some inferior beat-em-up section of the game. They want to play Sonic.
Chat, get in the Discord to submit more videos to react to.
Whatever gimmick is there. Besides that, though, the game is fine. A fair rating would have been a 7 out of 10. In my opinion, at least.
I get it.
Critics did not see it that way.
Oh, he does touch on this.
These numbers are reaching Sonic Forces levels of reviews. Yeah. Wait, no, it's lower. People...
It actually got lower than Sonic Forces. That's crazy.
Did not like this game very much. Until many years later, Sonic fans went back to play it, and they realized, wait a minute, this is pretty good. This is what we've been wanting from Sonic for years now.
Yeah.
A high-budget, good level design, and a working product with a ton of polish. So once the storm of early reception of the game has finally passed, it seemed like people were allowed to form their own opinions on the game without the outside bias. And ever since, this game has been hailed as one of the best 3D Sonic games. Of course, much like the Sonic Adventure game, Sonic Unleashed still has its haters and its critics, and it's not quite universally loved like, say, Sonic Generations or Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
It can't be. That's the problem. There's no way. When you radically mix up the gameplay styles for this long in the Sonic franchise, and you have something like the Werehog with that is just like so much different than like the core base thing that most people replay, there's no way it could ever be received positively. Like unanimously, like a Generations kind of, you know? And there's a reason why this debate even exists in the first place. The reason being is that the franchise has rebooted and had so many different types of gameplay styles. You've had the classic games, you've had the adventure games, you've had the boost games, you've had the rush games, you've had so many different reboots of like the core gameplay loop of the franchise that the kids who grew up playing games like Sonic Forces are going on Twitter and saying Sonic Forces is better than a game like SA2, which to the average person, to most people who's played these games, is like kind of crazy. But you see some of this stuff happen, so it's no surprise that a game like Sonic Colors, a game like Sonic Unleashed, ages poorly or flip-flops with reception. As the years go on, we have kind of this recency bias or this what have you done for me lately mentality, where the most recent release is good by the standards of the time that it's being analyzed in. And for some instances, people grow up with Sonic Forces, they grow up with Sonic Generations, they like the boost formula, they go back to 2008 when Sonic Unleashed came out, which was kind of a while ago, and they realize like, wait, this game isn't so bad after all, because I like the boost formula and this was the beginning of the boost formula, you know what I mean? So they go back and they like those games. So, you know, in this current day and age, a lot of people like the boosting games, which is why a game like Unleashed could come back. As far as Colors goes, there's also reasons why that game at the time was received good, because the games that came out around that time were so bad and so different and so weird that it was considered really good. But then when you look at it from today's perspective, where we had all these different boost games, Generations came out after, people liked Unleashed, you know, some of the things start to come up like, oh, we don't like the corny writing in the game. We don't like the 2D sections. We don't like that it's not about going fast, it's more about platforming. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how this stuff happens. Hope going forward, especially when you look at like Superstars and Frontiers, they take the 2D classic Sonic, always been considered good, and run with that as a separate thing. And then for Frontiers, Open Zone, that's kind of what they build off of, and bring everyone together, you know what I mean? Instead of making it so radically different. Those are probably the two best identities for the franchise going forward. 3D is its own thing, 2D is its own thing. Build off of the 2D gameplay for the 2D games, and then the 3D games, make it one style, and just evolve, you know what I mean?
3 Knuckles. But it's a lot better than what it was in 2008. It's up there with the adventure games for how much love it receives from the community. If I've noticed anything, old veteran Sonic fans cannot stand the Sonic Unleashed praise. It's almost as if they feel like their opinion is being attacked by Sonic fans growing up and enjoying the game. And look, as an Unleashed fan, I'm not going to say it's a perfect game. I feel like there are other 3D Sonic games out there that more people are likely to enjoy. But when you throw around the review score of Sonic Unleashed to prove a point, it's just kind of stupid, you know? Because the term, where there's smoke, there's fire, goes both ways. Sonic Unleashed's Metacritic score may be low, but its user score is very high. And that's not normal for
No, get this off my screen! Get it off! Get it off! Get it off.
A bad game. You can compare the user score of Sonic Unleashed to other 3D Sonic games that weren't received well, and it's still significantly higher. I don't think you can simply invalidate everyone's opinion on this game, especially when there's this many who believe the game is fun. Also, if you unironically invalidate someone's opinion over a blue hedgehog, take a shower, and trust me, your outlook on life will change forever.
Oh my
God.
God.
There is another Sonic game that has received a bit of recency bias. And
this is really good, because Unleashed and Colors are the two games that really stand out to me. I guess that's what he's going to talk about right now. These are the two games, when you think of this discussion, are the ones that come up to mind.
Game is no other than Sonic Colors. Here's the thing, though. Sonic Colors has a different type of recency bias. Instead of being hated on release, it was absolutely loved on release. Sonic Colors is the well-known...
And you know what? The reason why Colors was loved when it was released is because it was like... It was the one Sonic game that just had one consistent playstyle all the way throughout. I can't think of another Sonic game other than the classics that just had one base game style, and just doubled down and stuck to it throughout the entire game. And it was pretty competent. It was pretty fair. It was pretty in line with, like, you know, get to point A, get to point B, and get the best rank. You know what I mean? And get better at the stage and improve your time. And makes sense. You know, it makes sense why Colors is 78. It's kind of a travesty that people look at Colors and they call it mid or it's trash or whatever. Like, that's a wrong take.
Return of Sonic that everyone praises the game as. Nowadays, though, the game has a bit of a rocky reputation. I think there's still more people who like the game than dislike it, but there's certainly a large crowd in the fanbase who either doesn't like it or thinks it's mediocre. It's almost like Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors reception switched places as time moved on.
That makes sense.
Whereas one is heavily praised now and the other one is seen as overrated. But why is that? What's everyone's issue with this game? I believe it comes down to 3 big reasons. Number 1, it focuses on platforming more than the high reactionary gameplay, thus making it inferior to the boosting gameplay seen in Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of right about that. Because when you play Colors, the boost, the way you move around in that game is a lot different than Unleash. Unleash is literally like you get rings, you go faster. Literally just press X and just react to stuff. In this game, they're very stingy with the boost, which kind of sucks.
Number 2, there are a lot of 2D sections in the
That's also true. I don't really like 2D in my 3D Sonic games, but it's still good though in Colors. It's better than, like, you know, Secret Rings or Black Knight or something like that. This is more in line with just like traditional Sonic gameplay.
There's entire levels that are fully 2D. And finally, number 3. The story is unbearable.
Yeah.
Well, actually, rephrase that. The plot is fine. It's the dialogue that sucks. Too many bad jokes, and it's family-friendly to a painful degree. Everyone already knows about the incredibly memed-on Baldy McNose hair. I don't need to say more than that. That perfectly represents this game's dialogue. Now, those are the criticisms that I see associated with this game the most. And personally, while I do enjoy Sonic Colors a lot, I can definitely understand why those aspects can be a deal breaker to a lot of Sonic fans. Oh, and trust me, it is a deal breaker for some of you guys. This game is getting called overrated by crowds of people like every day. But why?
Yeah, I mean, all the reasons he touched on are pretty good. Like the fact that there's nothing memorable about the story. Like, I feel like Sonic Colors doesn't really have its like signature moment. Unleash has a lot of signature moments. Like when you look at the story of you know, when Sonic like grabs Chip and he's like, you know, I need to, if I want to help out a friend, I shouldn't have to be obligated to or whatever. Like, whatever he said in there, like, there's none of that in this game. So there's nothing really that, I would say that there's nothing really memorable about the game. And probably another thing, or another reason why people hate the game is because of Sonic Colors Ultimate. And that's with the recency bias. Like, if you look at the Metacritic score of the original Sonic Colors, a 78. This game literally saved the franchise. This was a franchise that was starving for a 75 plus on Metacritic on a 3D mainline platformer. 8.1 user score. And then Colors Ultimate comes out, you have all the glitches, you have the seizure glitches, you just have like a very unpolished mess. The lighting, like the graphics looked weird. It drops to a 74, which isn't even that bad. Like, it's still, this actually got a better review score than Frontiers, which is kind of crazy to think about, but the user score clearly reflects that, you know, that drop in quality. When people think about Colors, they you know, some people's first experience with the game was Colors Ultimate, so that is going to kind of muddy your perception on the game, at least, you know, for the wide variety of people.
People just recently calling this game overrated. What made people dislike it so much suddenly? Now, believe it or not, I think it's because of Sonic Generations.
Sonic Colors is the black hole moment. I guess that's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing really too memorable that like stands out to the game. I feel like it's, I mean, they played everything safe, and I think they did a good job. It's one of the best 3D Sonic games ever, if you want to call it a 3D Sonic game. But in terms of like critical reception, and the franchise definitely needed that, but I don't know.
Hear me out. Before Sonic Colors, the only 3D Sonic boosting game was Sonic Unleashed. Most people didn't like that game at the time, so...
They took the best part of Unleashed and then just made it the full game. And that's why Colors is... Objectively, it's got to be like a top 3 3D Sonic game, you know?
Oftentimes, it resulted in people not actually caring about the boosting gameplay. In fact, there's still reviews up to this day where people call Sonic Unleashed's level design bad. But once Sonic Generations released, which had the boosting gameplay that was more similar to Sonic Unleashed, I think that's when people began to realize that this style of the boost is more fun than the style present in Sonic Colors, thus causing people to see Sonic Generations as the superior game when compared to Sonic Colors. Honestly, Sonic Generations might have been the the beginning to people liking Sonic Unleashed as well. Because even I remember that the only reason why I picked up the HD version of Sonic Unleashed was because I enjoyed the boosting gameplay from Sonic Generations and wanted more. Sonic Generations influenced me to do that, and I'm pretty sure that game has influenced a lot of people to not like Sonic Colors. I honestly think that's
I mean, Sonic Generations gives you, at least for the boosting gameplay, gives you a little bit more, you know? Like, you get more boost, more high pace, more high action. Colors, like he said, it's very platformy, so makes sense.
When a game improves upon its gameplay style,
but some people don't like the classic Sonic gameplay. The one thing that Colors does, there is no classic Sonic gameplay. It's just one style of gameplay, which, you know, for some people, they might like that more.
Future titles, people typically want
Why is Sonic Superstar $60? They're robbing us? Nah, it's worth it.
Especially when the gap of improvement is large. I mean, think about it from that perspective. If you want to play a boosting Sonic game and you want the best experience, why go to Sonic Colors when Sonic Generations and Sonic Unleashed offer the better gameplay? Of course, that doesn't mean that Sonic Colors is definitively the worst of the 3 boost games. Personally, I'm still a huge fan of Sonic Colors, and I even prefer it over Generations. But
that's a hot take.
I just said that, I already know that statement is going to be controversial. Now, before we move on, I want to talk about one more Sonic game because I feel like it's necessary. And what other game can that be than Sonic Frontiers? Listen, I really
here we go. This is where the takes are gonna get hot.
Sonic Frontiers. However, with that said, I do notice that this game is very unpolished and has quite a few issues. So I think it's entirely possible that Sonic Frontiers might face the same fate as Sonic Colors very soon. The reason why I say that is
if the sequel to Sonic Frontiers is infinitely better, if it's the open zone gameplay and it's infinitely better than Sonic Frontiers, I can see Sonic Frontiers aging really poorly. I could see people completely flopping on this game, which you kind of saw, like, when the game first came out, everyone's like, yo, this game's peak, or whatever. And now you're seeing a lot of people kind of walk that back and say, you know, it was a good game, but it needs to be built on. It can be better, you know? It's kind of my take. I'm still 8 out of 10 on it. And once Update 3 drops, I think we'll
because I feel like this game,
it'll firmly entrench itself pretty high up. So we'll see. Because I love that spin dash. I love what they did with it. And the story, my biggest problem with the game is definitely probably the story.
Hasn't even scratched the surface with the open zone gameplay. And if the next Sonic game improves significantly upon the open zone gameplay to the point where the quality of Sonic Frontiers has long since passed, I think people will begin to stop liking the game. Now, of course, it all depends on if the next game is good or widely perceived as better. If the next game sucks, then Sonic Frontiers will probably remain as one of the most beloved 3D Sonic games. If it's good, or maybe even better, I think Sonic fans will throw this game straight to the wolves to get torn apart.
Yo, he's right.
The thing.
Yo, that's crazy.
Promise anything to myself, but judging from the position that Sega is currently in, a sequel to an open zone style of gameplay should
Sonic Frontiers 2 now with momentum. Yeah, that would be pretty nice. You know, I was playing Sonic Horizons the other day, and I'm like, this could be a little formula for Sonic. Sonic Horizons, by the way, is a fan game from Stage 2023. I'm like, yo, that was basically Sonic Frontiers with momentum.
Would be a slam dunk. They already hit the perfect gameplay loop. They just have to do it again and fix all of the issues. I think it's more likely that we will get
this section right here too, like, you guys remember this section from Ares Island? This truly showed what the open zone was all about. Like, they had like a level inside of the open zone. If they had my like perfect idea for Sonic Frontiers would be just like a bunch of like levels in an open world, because this part of Ares Island was sick and truly showed like what the open zone was all about.
Hopefully I didn't jinx it, but I do have faith in Mario Kishimoto after he's answered all of the questions on Twitter and whatnot. We're also supposedly getting a bigger budget.
Yeah, bigger budget. Yeah, that's what we need, bro.
Obviously means more ambition and better game. Supposedly, of course.
The Frontier cyber corruption plot was so bad. Yeah, it was literally horrible. It was like it was good until it literally just ends. They're like, okay, power friendship, it's over, you know?
I don't know. Sega could turn this into another dumpster fire. But anyways, let's move on. Ambition. The one reason that most people point to for why Sonic fans can enjoy a bad Sonic game. It's the idea that Sonic fans only like bad Sonic games because it had ambition when it was being developed.
Okay.
This is mainly used for games such as Sonic 06,
The
Sonic
Goat.
and the Secret Rings,
Bad.
Sonic and the Black Knight, and
Okay.
other games like Shadow the Hedgehog.
Bad.
Yes, these games do have their fans, and they do exist within the community. But do these fans only enjoy these games because they're ambitious? Well, I think the better question is, what's wrong with that? Something that I've noticed with a lot of bad Sonic games is that Sonic doesn't fail like most other games do. Take Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic and the Black Knight, for example. These games, in my opinion, have terrible gameplay. I do not like playing these games at all, and they're at the bottom of my tier list.
Yeah, like those games are just so bad. Like to go from those games and then they popped out Sonic Colors. It's like I don't know. I don't know why people are hating on Colors, bro. That game saved the franchise.
I'm sorry. However, besides the gameplay, these games are 10 out of 10s. The music is...
The friendship power-up was too cringe. The crying cutscene of Sage singing was also... Yo, that was... Bro, when I was streaming that, I'm like, oh my god. When she starts singing, I'm like, dude, what?
It's good. The setting and atmosphere is good. There's no bugs and glitches. The menus are polished and look unique. Even the stories are decent for these games. Everything about...
That's what we do like that, though. We do like the story of these games.
Is good.
In the characterization, Jason Griffith goes off in Black Knight.
Except for the gameplay. They would be literal masterpieces if the gameplay did not suck. Meanwhile, you check out something like Battlefield 2042 or the new Saints Row game, and you find no redeeming qualities. It may seem like I'm comparing trash to garbage, but in reality, I can understand how someone could enjoy these games. Because when there's passion behind art, the audience sometimes can feel that and find enjoyment out of it. When it comes to me, I play games for the gameplay. Everything else that the game has is in service.
I mean, story's still good too. Like you need a good story for immersion and stuff like that. Like the reason why Sonic Adventure 2 is good, I mean, the story plays a factor in that, in addition to the gameplay. But at the end of the day, a good game needs good gameplay. I mean, that's self-explanatory.
So I don't really like these games, but some people like to play games for the story, the atmosphere, and the world rather than the gameplay. And can I really shame...
That's fully part of the gameplay experience. That's just as important. Human beings have many senses. We have like the a good story, good world building, immersion. That really invests you into the game. Look at this basketball hat, by the way. I keep holding this, bro.
Someone for that. At the end of the day, it's a preference. You can whine and cry about how Sonic fans enjoy a negatively perceived game, or you can go outside, touch some grass, and realize...
No! We will not be touching the grass!
Sonic isn't the only thing that matters in life. I'll end off this video by saying this. There are objective qualities to games that most players enjoy. However, there is no such thing as an objectively good video game. Most players prefer...
Sonic Adventure.
For a polished game without bugs and a solid foundation for gameplay. So
they should just stop using the boost. Sonic Frontiers was all just boost. I feel like Sonic Frontiers was a good mix though. It was more of like a Lost World running hybrid. I don't know if I would consider Frontiers like a straight up boosting game. This Frontiers is the one game I like how they did boost, because you actually have control of the character. You have full 360 control, where the other boost games are like, when you're trying to move around, like, in any 360 motion, you could try to go left, you try to go right, backwards, forwards. Boosting is all about going forwards. I actually like how they handle it in Frontiers, if they're ever going to bring back the boost. I don't know.
As a game developer, you want to achieve that goal so you can please...
Better SADX is the best. Yeah, better SADX is goated.
Most players. However, you cannot stop someone from enjoying a game that fails to reach those goals, because the enjoyment someone gets from a video game or any art piece that has ever existed is ultimately subjective. No opinion is wrong. Unless if you like Sonic Heroes.
I knew it. I knew it's coming. Sonic Heroes is goated. But yeah, that's the video, guys. If you have any more videos you want me to react to, join the Discord server, send me some videos, and we'll check it out. And that's it. I think that's it. All right. Yeah, it's a pretty good video. I think we pretty much agree with him for the most part.